So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are. And welcome to this webinar that follows after a few days the World Press Freedom Day, which was on May the 3rd. And I would, as a way of introduction, like to take advantage of this webinar to propose a comparison between Father Ong without an H and Dr. Hong with an H. Father Walter G. Ong was a Jesuit Catholic priest and St. Louis University professor who died in 2003. And he was among the most influential communication and media scholars of the 20th century. In his 1982 masterpiece called Orality and Literacy, Hong explored the profound and cognitive cultural shifts that occur when societies transition from oral traditions to literacy. Ong argued that writing restructures consciousness, altering how humans think, communicate, and engage with knowledge. Well known among scholars is Ong's call to reflect on how deep the transformation of societies transitioning from orality to scriptures are. But less noticed was his remark that the transition carries ethical implications, particularly about conscience, the internal moral compass that guides human behavior. In oral cultures, knowledge is preserved through the spoken word, storytelling, and communal memory. Ong highlights that oral societies rely on mnemonic devices, formulaic expressions, and participatory communication to sustain traditions. In such cultures, the ethical values are deeply embedded in collective experiences, reinforced through shared narratives and interpersonal interactions. The communal nature of orality fosters a strong sense of responsibility as moral principles are transmitted through experience rather than abstract reasoning. The advent of writing introduced a shift from communal knowledge to individualized reflection. Ong argues that literacy enables abstract thinking, allowing individuals to engage with complex ethical dilemmas. Literacy fosters introspection as individuals can engage with philosophical and religious texts that shape their conscience. However, while literacy empowers individuals to develop personal moral frameworks, it can also lead to detachment from communal values. Ong extended his analysis to the impact of print and electronic media on ethical consciousness. The printing press revolutionized knowledge dissemination, enabling widespread moral and philosophical conversation. This democratization of information strengthened ethical reasoning, allowing individuals to engage with different perspectives. However, Ong warned that electronic media, particularly digital communication, altered ethical engagement. Even before the internet and social media, Ong noticed a transition from literacy as we knew it to a secondary orality where the sounds and images of radio and television do not suppress the written word, but reduce its preeminence. This immediacy of digital interaction can diminish reflective moral reasoning, leading to impulsive ethical judgments. The fragmentation of information in digital spaces challenges traditional notions of conscience as individuals navigate a vast array of conflicting moral narratives. There is a risk that conscience may get lost in a sea of information. In the electronic age, media can help the recovery of conscience, but may also exacerbate its loss by spreading false or irresponsible information. The ethical implications of Father Ong's grand study of the evolution of communication resonate with the teachings of Dr. Hong with H. Dr. Hong Daozi, the Shifu or Grandmaster of Tai Ji Men. Celebrating in 2021 the International Day of Happiness, Dr. Hong noted that in society, a good culture is needed to nourish people's bodies, minds, and souls. Spiritual abundance and inner peace are the keys to true and constant happiness. Conscience is the foundation and origin of a good culture and the positive energy to stabilize the world. We should strike, Dr. Hong said, a balance between technology and spirituality, as well as between economic growth and environmental health. Free media is essential for broadcasting a renewed call to conscience. However, the media can also abuse their role and act in opposition to conscience. This was true during the long Tai Ji Men case in Taiwan, when the media repeated prosecutor Ho Kwang-jen's lies and created a climate of slander and defamation, leading to the discrimination of Dizi or disciples in Taiwanese society. On the other hand, our webinars like this one are also a call to the media, starting from those specializing in freedom of religion and belief, but hopefully extending to different media outlets to tell the truth on the Tai Ji Men case. Telling the truth is not only a way to render due justice to Tai Ji Men, it is also an exercise that reinforces conscience and leads to a more conscientious world. So this was my introduction, Father or Professor Ong and Dr. Hong. And before we pass to the speakers of the first session, we have a video with a message of the United Nations Secretary General about World Press Freedom Day.
In a world plagued by conflict and division, World Press Freedom Day highlights a fundamental truth. Freedom for people depends on freedom of the press. Free and independent journalism is an essential public good. It's the backbone of accountability, justice, equality, and human rights. Journalists everywhere must be able to report freely and without fear or favor. When journalists are unable to work, we all lose. Tragically, this is becoming more difficult every year, and more dangerous. Journalists face attacks, detention, censorship, intimidation, violence, and even death, simply for doing their jobs. We are seeing a sharp rise in the number of journalists killed in conflict areas, particularly in Gaza. And now, As this year's theme reminds us, press freedom faces an unprecedented threat. Artificial intelligence can support freedom of expression or stifle it. Biased algorithms, outright lies, and hate speech are landmines on the information superhighway. Accurate, verifiable, fact-based information is the best tool to defuse them. The Global Digital Compact adopted last year includes concrete steps to strengthen international cooperation to promote information integrity, tolerance and respect in the digital space. AI must be shaped in a way that is consistent with human rights and puts facts first. And the global principles for information integrity I launched last year are supporting and informing this work as we push for a more humane information ecosystem. On this World Press Freedom Day, let's commit to make this a reality and safeguard press freedom and the press everywhere.
And after this message, I have the pleasure of introducing the first speaker of the first session, who is Michele Olzi, who is a teaching assistant and temporary research fellow at the University of Insubria in Italy. So Michele Olzi, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Massimo. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. So, Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights reads, open quote, everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. End of quote. Each part of Article 19 implies the endorsement and defense of internationally acknowledged social and political values. The right to freedom of opinion and expression implies a continuous assessment of the state of press freedom throughout the world. The possibility to accept this right without interference implies the independence of the media from any kind of attack. The fact that all can express their opinions through any media and regardless of frontiers is another fundamental principle of press freedom. As we gather online shortly after World Press Freedom Day, Article 19 reminds us of what social and political values are at stake and need to be defended. More specifically, the right to freedom of expression is a crucial element of social political framework of our society and, of course, of democratic regimes all around the world. Freedom of expression and opinion embodies a crucial political liberty that all citizens are entitled to, that is, the possibility to express their dissent. In other words, freedom of opinion and expression via press freedom, or the lack of it, characterizes the political dynamic of a collectivity. Therefore, the right to this freedom is a crucial element of a political sphere of a society. This peculiar political liberty is essential to modern democracies. According to leading Italian political scientist Norberto Bobbio, freedom of opinion and expression strongly influences political participation and decisional processes. Free public debates between political actors are essential to the political life of a community. The possibility of dissent in any public, political, or mediatic confrontation is the core of a democratic system of governance. This stresses once more that freedom of opinion and expression is a structural component of modern democracies. And in one of the essays of his book, The Future of Democracy, Bobbio writes, open quote, a democratic system recognizes these minority movements and, within limits that vary from country to country, tolerates them based on the two fundamental principles of freedom of association and freedom of opinion. These two principles are to be interpreted as the essential precondition for the proper working of the rules of the game, particularly for the most basic rule defining democracy. It establishes that no collective decision taken is binding or can be put into effect unless its legality ultimately depends on a consensus that has expressed itself via the exercise of universal suffrage in periodic elections. Freedom of association and freedom of opinion are to be regarded as precondition for the proper functioning of a democratic system, as it befits a system based on responding to demands expressed from below, and on the free choice of which policies should be adopted or which delegates should decide them. It puts the representatives in a position to formulate their own demands and to take decisions after due consideration and free debate. Obviously, neither freedom of association nor freedom of opinion can be completely unrestricted, which is true of any freedom. The shift in the limits one way or another determines the degree of democracy enjoyed in a system. Where the limits are extended, the democratic system undergoes modification. Where the two freedoms are suppressed, democracy ceases to exist altogether. This concept offers several political implications about freedom of opinion and expression. First, as already mentioned, these freedoms are essential preconditions, said Bobbio, for the proper functioning of any democratic system. This means that the suppression of these liberties is strictly connected to the potential collapse or failure of democratic systems of governance. A second implication relates to the role of the media in the political life of a community. Freedom of the press allows to, open quote, put the political representatives in a position to formulate their own demands and to take decisions after due consideration and free debate. Media allows political actors to properly intervene in the public political and decisional processes of the community. According to Bobbio, once more, citizens may also take part in the political life of the community by manifesting their opinions via the media. Again, this democratic process of participation allows the expression of the citizen dissent, which is quite crucial in Bobbio's statement. According to Bobbio, the fact that both citizens and political actors can publicly manifest their dissent is the real trial by fire of any democratic system. Bobbio writes, open quote, "It is useless to delude ourselves. The acid test of a democratic system is the type of answer we give to these questions. I do not mean by this that democracy is a system founded on dissent rather than on consent. I mean that in a political system founded on a consensus that is not imposed from above, some form of dissent is inevitable. Only where dissent is free to express itself is consensus real. Furthermore, only where consensus is real can a system justly claim to be democratic." End of quote. Therefore, we can state that the media plays a crucial role in the social political life of the collectivity. The media emphasizes and amplifies the opinions of political representatives and citizens, as well as their dissent. However, the way the media interact with the social political sphere of the society and the use of the freedom of the press and of opinion is not always ethical. In other words, there are cases where the media misuse the freedom of the press and misrepresent the facts about specific events and citizens. In this sense, the campaign of persecution against the Tai Ji Men movement is quite emblematic itself. The Taiwan-based Tai Ji Men movement and his Zhang Menren or Shifu, Dr. Hang Tao-tse, pardon my pronunciation, have suffered several public attacks and accusations from different Taiwanese institutions since the 90s. Some accusations were peculiar and weird. On April 16, 1997, prosecutor Hu Quancheng of the Taipei District Prosecutor's Office disclosed the indictment against Dr. Hong and his disciples, who he had been investigating since the previous year. The document accused Dr. Hong of raising goblins, who announced the accusation of raising goblins in television and met with both skepticism and ridicule. The magical practice of raising goblins may be sometimes found in Chinese and Asian folklore, but is foreign to Tai Ji Men culture and worldview. Besides these weird accusations, other mediatic misrepresentation of the Tai Ji Men movement are connected to the false accusations of tax evasion. I guess we're all familiar by now with the fact that on July 13, 2007, the Criminal Division of the Supreme Court of Taiwan pronounced the final acquittal of the Tai Ji Men defendants, declaring them innocent of all charges, including tax evasion. However, several years after the decision, the National Taxation Bureau still maintained, based on a technicality, a tax bill for the year 1992. It insisted that money Dr. Hong had received in this year in the so-called red envelopes should not be considered as a non-taxable gift, but as tuition fees for a so-called cram school, that are schools where pupils receive crash courses normally in preparation for exams. Note that NTB had accepted to reduce the tax bills to zero for all years other than 1992, and that the Taiwanese authorities in charge of overseeing cram schools had repeatedly declared that Tai Ji Men is not a cram school. Prosecutor Hu and the NTB could not have continued with their fabricated accusations of tax bill without the support of several media and their constant misrepresentation of the Tai Ji Men. Therefore, we can entirely say that this was a peculiar case of misuse of press freedom in a democratic country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michele Olzi, for this deep speech on the political implications of press freedom and their impact on the Tai Ji Men case. And now I will pass the podium to our second speaker, well known to those who attend our webinars, and his name is Peter Zörer, and he's a well-known Austrian journalist who also occupies an important position as executive director of the Forum for Religious Freedom Europe. So, Peter Zörer, the floor is yours. Peter, you are muted. You are muted. We cannot hear you. You are still muted.
It's okay? No?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Massimo, for this nice introduction. And thank you for the previous speaker and both of you. It was very interesting. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The topic of my speech is media impact on freedom of religion or belief and the Tai Ji Men case. As a journalist and the freedom of religious religion or belief activist, I have witnessed firsthand how the media can be a force for liberation or a tool of oppression. At its best, the press uncovers injustice and gives voice to the voiceless. At its worst, it amplifies prejudice, repeats government propaganda, and legitimizes violations of human rights. Nowhere in this duality, nowhere is this duality more apparent than in how religious minorities are portrayed in the media today. From Africa to East Asia, from authoritarian regimes to democratic states, the media have too often failed their public duty when covering vulnerable faith communities. Today, I want to focus primarily on the long-standing injustice faced by the Tai Ji Men spiritual movement in Taiwan. But let me emphasize, Tai Ji Men is not alone. Religious persecution is worsening globally. According to the US Commission on International Religious Freedom report, over 80 countries continue to engage in or tolerate severe violations of religious freedom of belief. Let's look at some examples. Nigeria. More than 5,000 Christians were murdered for their faith in 2023 alone. According to the International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law, called Inter-Society, entire communities live in fear while mainstream media coverage in the West remains shockingly muted. They just don't write about it. Pakistan. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community. This is a community where FoRB also was very much engaged with to defend them in different cases. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community declared non-Muslims by constitutional law faces constant harassment, incited in part by state sanctions and media-endorsed hate speech. Blasphemy accusations, often triggered by social media rumors, led to mob violence and extrajudicial killings. China. More than 1 million Uyghur Muslims are held in the so-called reduction camps. Tibetan Buddhists face enforced assimilation. Falun Gong practitioners are persecuted relentlessly, demonized in official media as an evil cult. Independent investigations have documented torture, forced organ harvesting, and propaganda campaigns aimed at erasing both identity and truth. Japan. Since the assassination of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in 2022, over 4,000 new articles have attacked the Unification Church. Though the assassin acted alone and was never a member of the church, Japanese media and political forces exploited the tragedy to launch a smear campaign, resulting in frozen assets, revoked legal status, and violations of religious freedom under the guise of consumer protection. This is not journalism. This is trial by the media. It erodes freedom of religion and belief and the rule of law. Now let me turn to the case that brings all these patterns into sharp focus. The Tai Ji Men case in Taiwan. In December 1996, Tai Ji Men, a Menpai organized as an academy and promoting peace, self-cultivation, and traditional culture, was raided by Taiwanese authorities under fabricated accusations of fraud and tax evasion. The prosecutor at that time, Hua Kuan-yen, launched a public smear campaign giving press briefings that portrayed Tai Ji Men as a dangerous cult. Again, press briefings and the media. Mainstream media repeated his claims without scrutiny, turning a baseless accusation into a national scandal. But the facts speak differently. In 2007, after over a decade of court battles, the Supreme Court of Taiwan acquitted Dr. Hong Tao-tse, the founder of Tai Ji Men, and his co-defendants of all charges, including tax evasion. The court confirmed that no profit-seeking tuition has occurred. Yet the National Taxation Bureau ignored this ruling and continued to issue tax bills based on the already discredited accusations. In 2020, government authorities auctioned and confiscated Tai Ji Men land, sacred property intended for a self-cultivation and education center, despite no legal justification. The media barely reported it. I have been there in Taiwan. I have seen the properties, together with Massimo and other colleagues. This is a textbook example of how false narratives repeated long enough become perceived truth. The media never corrected the records. Injustice was allowed to stand, not only by government actors, but also by journalists who failed to do their jobs. Just as simple as that. Freedom of the press and freedom of religion are not only parallel rights, they are intertwined. When the media fail to investigate or challenge government narratives, especially against minority religions, it enables abuse. It's easy to sell headlines that reinforce fear or prejudice. It's harder to tell the more profound truth. But that is our moral duty as journalists. Independent platforms such as Peter Winter, FoRB Europe, and Chesnur have documented Tai Ji Men's case in a depth. Scholars like Massimo Trovini, Eileen Parker, Rosita Sorite, and Willy Fortre have shown how uncorrected media slander feeds a broader pattern of discrimination. Let me be clear. The Tai Ji Men is not a tax evader. It is not a cult. It is a peaceful community that has tirelessly promoted conscience, dialogue, and cultural exchange. Presenting at the UN and receiving awards from over 100 countries. Yet, in its own homeland, it has faced 27 years of state-sponsored and media-enabled injustice. As we celebrate the recent International Day of Press Freedom, let us remember that the integrity of journalism is not measured by access, ratings, or virality, but by courage, honesty, and the willingness to report what others want. If we care about human dignity and democracy, we must care about freedom of religion or belief, about FoRB, and about those whose voices are silenced or distorted in the public square. The story of Tai Ji Men deserves to be heard, and the truth deserves to be told. and not just today, but until justice prevails. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Peter Zörer, for this presentation with a large scope from Nigeria, Pakistan, China, and Taiwan and Japan, which finally led us to the Tai Ji Men case, which is, as you say, the textbook example of what is wrong in the media coverage of cases of religious discrimination and persecution. And that concludes our first session. And for the second session, and for the presentation of a video that will introduce the second session, I pass the podium to Willy Fautré, who is well known as the co-founder and director of Human Rights Without Frontiers, which is a co-organizer of this webinar.
Thank you, Massimo, for the introduction to the second part of the webinar that is, as usual, devoted to the testimonies of the dizzy. But first, I want to share with all of you some information about this special day devoted to World Press Freedom. And then afterwards, before giving the floor to the dizzy, we will have a video titled Dilemma Between Conscience and Orders. So in early May of this year, the International Federation of Journalists launched its 23rd annual South Asia Press Freedom Report, entitled Frontline Democracy, Media Amid Political Churn. The report was produced with the support of the UNESCO, Norsk Journalistlag, the European Commission, and the US National Endowment for Democracy. It covered the situation of press freedom in Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. The report recorded a total of 250 media rights violations in the last 12 months, including the targeted killings of 20 journalists and media workers. This is a dramatic increase from the 8 deaths reported in the previous report 2023-2024 period. Journalists across the region face attacks, arrests, detention, with at least 70 media professionals jailed or detained, and over 190 assaulted, threatened, or harassed, often by law enforcement. At the time of publication, at least 19 journalists remained behind bars. Concerning Taiwan, the International Federation of Journalists noted that last year, reporters from the Taiwanese Central News Agency were denied interview permits to the World Health Assembly, with officials reportedly asking them to provide a Chinese passport. The International Federation of Journalists then joined its affiliate, the Association of Taiwan Journalists, in calling on the United Nations and the World Health Organization to uphold press freedom and allow access to journalists and media workers regardless of nationality. The Committee to Protect Journalists also supported Taiwanese media barred from access to the UN World Health Assembly. On the 1st of March of this year, Article 19 in London published a press release about the threat in the Indo-Pacific region represented by China's digital authoritarian model of cybersecurity, and their answer was, to resist China's cyber norms, we must support Taiwan. In its recent annual report 2025, Reporters Without Borders ranked Taiwan 27 out of 180 states and territories, the last three on the list being the People's Republic of China, North Korea, and Eritrea. In their report, Taiwan was described as a liberal democracy and the world's 21st largest economy that, and I quote, generally respects the principles of media freedom. However, its journalists still suffer from a very polarized media environment dominated by sensationalism and the pursuit of profit, unquote. Sensationalism is the key word. On the one hand, it is a fact that journalists and media outlets are victims of all sorts of political repressions, as the statistics show, and they can rightly complain about their increasingly shrinking space of action due to the intrusion of commercial actors and private interests. On the other hand, media outlets and journalists can also be servants of sensationalism, because sensationalism sells. When the impact of their work is based on thorough investigation and unbiased analysis, then it can be presented as a scoop, and it is laudable. But when the facts are distorted, manipulated, or even fabricated just to sell, it is a shame, because they disfigure the nobility of their profession. And not only that, they cause a lot of damage in the lives of many people, protecting their impunity under the umbrella of their freedom of expression. Tai Ji Men and their members have unfortunately a lot of experience in this regard. In their personal and professional lives, Dizzy have been victims of derogatory labels and misrepresentations, misused just to sell. A number of journalists and media have their share of responsibility in the stigmatization, hostility, intolerance, and damage they have suffered from, because biased and false accusations, fake news, and sometimes even gross lies have been thrown to the public without investigation or fact-checking, if not on purpose, just to sell. With their experience, Tai Ji Men and the Dizzy could and should sanitize the media with the help of other victims, not censor, but sanitize with the help of Taiwanese media regulators and watchdogs, with the weapons of the ethical rules of the profession. If they do so, their suffering will not have been in vain. Thank you. And now we will watch the video that I had announced, Dilemma, so between conscience and orders.
The dilemma between conscience and orders. During the 2023 Russia-Ukraine war, a Wagner soldier bitterly accused, "I followed orders and used this hand to kill children." How can we prevent such tragedies from recurring? The following trial offers a powerful lesson for deep reflection. In 1989, East German young man Chris Geffroy attempted to flee over the Berlin Wall to West Germany. The guard, Ingo Heinrich, was ordered to shoot, and Chris tragically lost his life. After the reunification of Germany, Heinrich was brought to trial. His lawyer argued that he was merely following the commands of his officer. However, the judge believed that when confronting an unarmed fugitive, it could be prevented by the gentlest means. The judge emphasized that not everything legal is necessarily right. In 1994, Heinrich was convicted, serving as a reminder that no one has the right to ignore their conscience, even when obeying orders. In this world, beyond laws and orders, there exists conscience. When conflicts arise, following your conscience will lead to courage and wisdom.
Thank you for this very interesting video, of course dating back to other times and other part of the world, but it is a very interesting source of inspirations for the dizzy and for all of us, of course. And now the first speaker on our list is Lillian Chen, an obstetric sonographer.
Hello everyone, my name is Lillian Chen, and I am an obstetric sonographer. Every day I care for the health of pregnant women and their baby with warm and a clear conscience. However, after a long and busy day, I often feel exhausted. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to learn Tai Ji Men Qigong. Through practice Qigong, I maintain my physical health, and by learning the wisdom of yin and yang, I have gradually learned to find a balance between work and life. In recent years, Shifu reminds us to watch the news more often. In addition to keep up with current events around the world and keeping up with the times, Shifu also reminds us that the social environment has been rather turbulent lately. He encouraged us to practice Qigong and take good care of ourselves, while also teaching us to distinguish right from wrong and to enhance our media literacy. Every year on May 3rd, we observe World Press Freedom Day and declared by the United Nations. This reminds me of the Tai Ji Men 1219 incident, a serious case of human rights abuse. Prosecutor Ho Kwan-ren, who led the case, violated investigative confidentiality and used the media to spread false information. He accused Tai Ji Men Shifu and deeds of fraud, tax evasion, and even rights gobbling, leading to public condemnation and before a fair trial. After 10 years and 3 months of hard work and the pursuit of justice, on July 3rd, 2007, the Supreme Court made the final decision. Not guilty and no tax was owed. Our innocence was finally proven. However, this important decision was rarely reported by the media in Taiwan. They also did not correct the nearly 500 newspaper and the TV report that had spread lies and that caused the public to misunderstand us. Because of this, many Tai Ji Men brothers and sisters still face problems with family and friends who believe the false news. The hurt and pain from those misunderstandings have not healed, and even until today. For a decade, our Shifu had led deeds to promoting a culture of love, conscience, and peace, both in Taiwan and around the world. During this journey, Shifu had also passed on the culture and value of Tai Ji Men to us. Shifu encouraged us to write down what we see, hear, and our experience. By doing so, more people can learn about Tai Ji Men through reading the written story reported by media. Through this, I've come to understand Shifu's wisdom. We shouldn't just passively wait for the media to report fairly on us. Instead, Shifu guides us to take action, to proactively reach out and communicate with media. Shifu helped us understand that everyone had the right to access and use the media. and he guides us to truly put it into practice. I believe this is a very important part of press freedom, especially in today's world, where truth and lie are often mixed, and right and wrong are not always clear. Among the many meaningful events led by our Shifu, I was honored to take part in the opening performance of the Taipei 2017 Universiade. I still remember that summer. We practiced every weekend under the burning sun. But all of us, brother and sister, had one heart and one goal, to share the beautiful of Tai Ji Men culture with the world. I performed in the sword dance, and during our training, we didn't just work on state and movement. We were also learning to cultivate the heart of justice. That righteous heart continues to influence me today. It always reminds me to live with conscience, especially in my work. As a healthcare professional, the most important thing is to give patient the right information and care plan. It reflects the oath I made before entering the medical field. I vow to fulfill my duty with no complaint or regret, with the well-being of patient as my top priority. Whenever life gets hard, I often think back to the Universiade. I remember how I endured the 38-degree Celsius heat, fatigue, long travel time, and the tight schedule, and still complete something truly meaningful. That memory gave me strength and faith that I can overcome the challenges I face now and in the future. In the opening performance of the summer Universiade, with the theme passing on the torch heart to heart, we represent an ancient martial formation called the 9-9 link formation. The sister performing the sword dance from the 7-star formation symbolize the Big Dipper in the sky, guiding those who have lost their way. We also display the Sword of Light, representing our determination to eliminate evil and uphold justice. Our Shifu also guide us to write down the meaning and the spirit behind the performance and share it with various media outlets. This writing were also published on the Tai Ji Men website, helping the media better understand our performance and allowed more people to learn about the Tai Ji Men culture. In this way, such a beautiful tradition is also preserved through another meaningful form. News media not only play the role of monitoring the government, but also help people better understand each other through their report. Throughout history, many wars have started because of misunderstanding and a lack of communication. One example is the ongoing conflict between Christianity and Islam. Due to bias reported in some Western media, there is often an overemphasis on violence connected to religion, which can lead people to wrongly associate the entire Islamic faith with a small group of extremists. In April 2025, our Shifu led us on a cultural exchange trip to Saudi Arabia. During our visit, we discovered that Islam is also a religion with value of peace and love. The people we meet there were warm, kind, and full of happiness. I believe that when news media were willing to report in a diverse and neutral way, avoiding stereotype and harmful label, it can gradually improve mutual understanding across different parts of society. Media can serve as a bridge for communication and peace, helping to remind misunderstanding and reduce conflict between people. Today, as we gather here to observe World Press Freedom Day, we not only call on the public to develop independent thinking and judgment, but also sincerely hope that media professionals will act with conscience, uphold their responsibility as the fourth estate, and protect justice and fairness in society. Only then can cases like the Tai Ji and human rights persecution be truly redressed and justice finally be restored. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Lillian, for serving the truth, not as a journalist, but in your professional activities with your patients, according to the teachings of Dr. Hong Tao Tse, with his experience of victim of the media and their lies. The defense of the truth is the supreme value. Nearly 500 newspaper and TV reports then spread lies about Tai Ji Men and caused the public to misunderstand the beliefs of the movement and defame the Shifu. And this has generated stereotypes and harmful labels about Tai Ji Men that are afterwards very difficult to extirpate from the minds of the people. At a bigger scale than Tai Ji Men, wrongly stigmatizing a human group like Muslims, as a number of media outlets and political groups do, can deeply fracture societies, lead to conflicts and acts of violence. Thank you again for your contribution. And I will now give the floor to Valerie Tsai, a college student. The floor is yours.
Hello, online experts, scholars, and friends. My name is Valerie Tsai, and I'm now a freshman. The essence of freedom of the press lies in its deep connection to freedom of speech, as outlined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Article 19 of the Declaration states, everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Fact-checking, getting to the bottom of events, and conveying the truth to the public are not only journalistic tasks, they are also the core values of the press. Through these positive practices, the press doesn't just report the news. It becomes a leader of public opinion and a countervailing power. In modern society, we call this rule the fourth estate, a rule that balances power, questions authority, and keeps democracy alive. In the Tai Ji Men case, the media appeared to fulfill its role, faithfully reporting information provided by prosecutorial and investigative authorities. But here's the problem. The information given by the authorities was false, misleading, and deeply defamatory. As a result, the reputation of Tai Ji Men's master and disciples were severely damaged, leading to a chain of events involving legal, tax-related, and human rights persecution. This makes us seriously question what is the function of the media in Taiwan? Has it become a tool for certain government officials to mislead the public and abuse power under the guise of journalism? Is the media still a public instrument, or has it turned into a private weapon? In the Tai Ji Men case, many newspaper and television reports followed the lead of prosecutorial authorities without verifying the fact. The result, overwhelmingly one-sided coverage. This brings to mind a broader issue. While media outlets often compete for exclusive stories, they rarely dare to miss out on major news narratives. And they're eager to break the story first. Many prioritize attention-grabbing headlines and viewer ratings over journalistic integrity. In their rush to publish, they may hastily piece together fragmented information with little or no fact-checking. The result is a simply professional report that's actually poorly substantiated. This phenomenon explains why, during the investigation of the Tai Ji Men case, numerous media outlets published extensive reports, apparently without concern for space limitations, based entirely on false information released by government agencies. And yet, Taiwan's government takes great pride in ranking first in Asia on the Press Freedom Index, according to Reporters Without Borders. At the same time, it claims to be actively combating disinformation. So here's the question. How can a media system that spreads unverified, government-fed narratives claim to stand as a pillar of press freedom and a bulwark against fake news? In the test case arising from the Tai Ji Men criminal case, my shifu Dr. Hong Daozi taught me a profound lesson through his actions. True courage comes from understanding. In the face of unlawful and abused taxation, my shifu firmly upheld the principle. Every cent of tax that is rightfully owned must be paid. Every cent that is not legitimately owned must not be paid. For 29 years, Tai Ji Men has persisted in its pursuit of tax justice and the protection of taxpayers' rights. This perseverance stems from Shifu's teachings, which emphasize the importance of discerning right from wrong, truth from falsehood, good from evil. Had we compromised with the Ministry of Finance, we would have undermined Tai Ji Men's over 6,000-year master disciple tradition and allowed unjust tax officials to keep prosecuting innocent people through coercions. My shifu's steadfastness has inspired broader societal engagement. A diverse group of professionals came together voluntarily to form the Alliance for Tax and Legal Reform. These volunteers have committed themselves to defending taxpayers' rights in Taiwan. Through vigilant oversight of unlawful officials and persistent grassroots advocacy, holding signs, raising awareness, promoting reform, they aim to prevent tax injustice and protect the lives, rights, and property of the people. The value of true courage comes from understanding is something I have come to comprehend gradually through my regular training at Tai Ji Men. On one occasion, during a formation practice, I accidentally dropped a perform prop during the break. It made a loud, startling noise. At that moment, I felt embarrassed and even a little ashamed. But with the kind guidance of my senior brothers and sisters, I began to understand something deeper. The prompt I dropped was not just an object. It was an integral part of our presentation. When I perform, the audience doesn't see me and the prompt separately. They see one unified entity. Only by truly understanding the nature of the prompt and by integrating myself with it, can I fully embody and convey the essence of Tai Ji Men culture. Behind perseverance, there are inevitably moments of sorrow and feelings of disillusionment with the tax system and national policies. Nevertheless, my shifu has demonstrated through his personal example a profound spirit of great love that transcends grief. Out of his love for society and for the world, Shifu initiated the movement of an era of conscience in 2014, advocating for global promotion of the value of conscience. Thanks to the collective efforts of many individuals, This movement extended from Taiwan to international stage, eventually leading to the United Nations adoption of April 5th as the International Day of Conscience in 2019. If everyone were to act according to conscience, the injustices and inequalities in society would be significantly reduced. If journalists reported conscientiously, bravely exposing injustice, and guiding public morals with truth and integrity, then society would move toward a future that is more just, more compassionate, and more humane. At today's forum commemorating World Press Freedom Day, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the esteemed experts and scholars who have devoted their time and effort to speak out for Tai Ji Men case, guided by conscience and a deep commitment to justice. Through this case, I have come to a recognition the profound influence of the Fourth Estate and society. Here and now, I call upon the government of Taiwan, a nation that prides itself on democracy and freedom, to avoid repeating past mistakes, such as the misuse of media by public officials during the early investigation of the Tai Ji Men case. It is imperative that the Taiwanese media adhere to principles of integrity and conscience, fulfilling their role as an independent and impartial fourth estate. They must hold the government accountable, reporting objectively, and resist the fear of missing dominant narratives. Only through such commitment to truth and fearless reporting can the true values of freedom of speech and press be meaningfully upheld. Finally, I believe that, in the face of injustice, each of us is a media outlet. We must be brave, brave enough to speak out and brave enough to share the truth. I sincerely hope that more media outlets in Taiwan will follow the example of international respected platforms such as Bitter Winter, and local media like Taiwan Xinsheng Daily News. They can reference important sources like the Tax and Legal Reform League and the 1219 Case Redress website to better understand and report on the truth of the Tai Ji Men case and the broader issue of tax justice and human rights. Only through wide and honest reporting can we raise public awareness and ensure the truth is not buried. I firmly believe that the redress of the Tai Ji Men case will succeed, and that Taiwan can truly become a nation grounded in democracy, freedom, human rights, and the rule of law. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Valerie, for sharing your thoughts about the fourth estate, a term that, as you said, refers to the press or news media, particularly in its role as watchdog over various branches of government and society. In dictatorships and totalitarian regimes, the fourth estate is unable to play its role of watchdog. But in democracies like Taiwan, the fourth estate can also, unfortunately, decide not to play the role that is, however, in its DNA. I mean, to serve the truth by criticizing, when it's needed, of course, the executive, legislative, and judicial pillars of democracy. And this is what happened in the Tai Ji Men case, where the fourth estate chose to serve sensationalism because it sells instead of serving the truth. Thank you again for your contribution. And now I will give the floor to Stuart Chu a university student. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stuart, and today I'd like to talk about freedom of the press of human rights, topic that deal with government power, media responsibility, and the conscience of our society. I want to share some thoughts about World Press Freedom Day and how it connects to case I know well, the Tai Ji Men fail case. And May 3rd is World Press Freedom Day, established by the United Nations. It's not just a day for honor journalists, it's a reminder that press freedom is the last line of defense for democracy and human rights. In 2024, the UN's theme for this day is A Press for the Planet, which focus on how legal, political, and social environments influence media freedom. In 2025, the theme is the safety and sustainability of journalism in the digital age, which highlights journalist safety, the survival of media outlets, and the threats of fake news in the digital era. I used to read about these things and move on, but when I think about the Tai Ji Men case, I realized how real and close these issues actually are. They can affect not just a group's survival, but also the foundation of the demonstration. The Tai Ji Men case began in 1996 when a Taiwanese prosecutor named Ho Kuan-jen launched a sudden investigate and principal agent Tai Ji Men under the name of Regulars Crackdown. He acted based only on anomalous letter and ignored the legal principle of no double just parted. In 2002, the Coroner Yuan found that Hong had communicated 8 major legal violations during the investigation. He was sent to the Ministry of Justice for strike punishment, but the media said almost nothing about that. Instead, the public mostly saw sensational headline labeling Tai Ji Men as a scam or cult, even though there was no proof. These reports were made without fact-checking, and they come from a time when Taiwan's media was still politically influenced. In what we call post-foreign period. Finally, in 2007, the Supreme Court declared Tai Ji Men not guilty, not tax invalid, and not in violation for any tax law. The court had investigated the case for over 10 years and cleared Tai Ji Men complete but Taiwan's National Tax Bureau ignored the regulars and kept issue tax bill based on the origin 13 indictment. After many years of Apple and administrative package in 2019, the Bureau finally canceled 5 out of 6 false tax bills based on ruling for the spring administered current. However, they left the 1992 tax bill, which was of the same nature, and even used it to forcefully seize an action of Tai Ji Men's planned spiritual practice in sight. The injustice has gone on for 29 years and it still hasn't been fully resolved. Many people say this case is a clear example of the government abusing its power to bully the people. When I think about this during World Press Freedom Day, it really strikes me because if the media back then had done their job, verified facts, interviewed both sides, and not blinding follow the words of government official who broke the law, made the public understanding of Tai Ji Men would be totally different today. For the past 29 years, a big part of Tai Ji Men's efforts has been to fight information inequality. Since the media stayed silent, Tai Ji Men's master and disciples had to organize forums, hold press conference, and speak on information, human rights, platforms to help the public understand what really happened and what the government did and didn't do. This matched 2025 themes of World Press Freedom Day, when media struggle to survive, when fake news spreads, and when independent journalism is disabling. How can we make sure the truth will be seen one day? This is not just problem from Tai Ji Men, it's a problem from affects everyone. When the media can no longer monitor the government and when society only hear one side voice, someone will be scarified, someone will be labeled, and someone will be silent. It also means citizens are given up our rights to know the truth. I've been practicing in Tai Ji Men for 16 years, starting from elementary school, and it made me physical, healthier, and more balanced in daily life. Mentally, I've become more calm, more reflective when facing problems, and least likely to blame others or the environment. Sometimes my friend asks me, why do you always seem so relaxed and stress-free? And it's easy to be around you. I've realized that this is probably because of influence of Tai Ji Men. We are taught from a young age to respect others, improve other character, stay calm, and speak with reason. These lessons will affect the way we deal with people and situations. While following the Tai Ji Men tax case, I've also stayed to think more about social issue, the abuse of power by the state felt similar to bullying we've seen in school. When I was younger, I saw classmates get excluded or gasped about for no reason. They didn't do anything wrong, but because of some mistaken uh, opi- op- uh, opinion, everyone misunderstands them. That kind of hurt is very real. In a way, Tai Chi Men is like that bullying classmate. Except this time, the bullying is not coming from kids. It's from law-breaking government officials, a full tax and legal system, and broken media environment. That's why I value every chance I get to speak up. Our Shifu often tells us, make the most of every opportunity to do good. I know that not everyone has the chance to speak, and not everyone dares to speak the truth. But if we will stay silent, this society will never change. So, in the end, I want to say press freedom is not only responsibility of journalists, it's the responsibility of every one of us. We must have the ability to tell truth from false and be willing to listen to different voice. I hope that one day cases like Tai Ji Men's will never happen again. And I hope that Taiwan's press freedom is not just a number in international ranks, but a real force that protect democracy and human rights. A system we wherever ignore voice can be hard and justice can be shy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart, for insisting that World Press Freedom Day is not just a day for journalists and their safety, but it is also for media survival and about misinformation as a threat for public trust in the news. And it also reminds us that free and truthful journalism is the last line of defense for democracy and human rights, the last line of defense. And this is not just the Tai Ji Man's problem either, it's everyone's problem. Because when the media cannot play its role and society only hears one voice, the government's voice, or a one sided voice, all the other voices are silenced, and diversity of opinions is doomed to disappear. Thank you again for sharing your thoughts with us. And now I will give the floor to Jason Nee, or Nye, I don't know about the pronunciation, a university student. The floor is yours, Jason.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Ni. Today is World Press Freedom Day, and now you might think that only concerns journalists' rights, but actually it affects every single one of us. People have the right to know what's going on in their country. If we don't know the truth, how can we make good decisions about public issues? Without that knowledge, our society can't grow or improve. Back in 2023, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, "Press freedom represents the very lifeblood of human rights." That really stuck with me, because without a free press, there could be no transparency and no accountability. And without laws, democracy can't survive. Taiwan, where I'm from, was under martial law for 38 years. People couldn't speak freely, publish freely, or even travel freely. The freedom we enjoy today didn't just appear. It was fought for by people who risked prison or even their lives. But even today, our media isn't perfectly neutral. There is still political polarization, clickbait, misinformation, and profit-driven news. All of this affect the output of journalists and make it harder for the public to know objectively what's really true. According to the 2024 World Press Freedom Index, Taiwan ranked 27th out of 180 countries. In 2025, it improved a bit to the 24th, but clearly there were still cases where the government pressured media outlets. That shows we still have work to do. I would like to share something personal. Even though it happened before I was born, it deeply affects my family members, including my grandparents and my parents 29 years ago. The Tai Ji Men injustice tax case, the media spread false stories led by a prosecutor who used the media to slander innocent people. Because of the false reports, my parents and grandparents were afraid to wear their practice clothes in public. Some friends and neighbors treated them differently, like they had done something wrong. At the beginning, prosecutor Ho Kwan-ren used the media to smear and spread rumors, report false news, and mislead the public impression of us. In 2007, the courts ruled Tai Ji Men not guilty and didn't owe any taxes. But in 2020, when I was already in middle school, the government still illegally auctioned off our land, which was planned for spiritual cultivation. Around the same time, one of our volunteers, Mrs. Huang, was only peacefully holding a sign on the street to speak out, but got arrested by the police soon after. That's a clear violation of freedom of speech. This shows that even after decades, Taiwan media and freedom of speech are still being manipulated by illegal officials. I grew up in Tai Ji Men. It's like one big happy family where we learn to train not just our bodies, but our mind and character too. When I was 6, I was part of a kids' dragon dance team. I was the head of the dragon. I ran really fast. However, I had to slow down so the rest of the team could keep up and together make the dragon fly. That's when I learned what teamwork really means. Later, in my elementary and middle school age, I often went out after class or on weekends with my parents to hand out flyers. We spoke up about the injustice we experienced, raising awareness about unfair taxes affecting many Taiwanese people. I've also watched my Sufu travel the world with our senior brothers and sisters, demonstrating courage, love, and positive energy to the world, awakening people conscience, and promoting world peace. Sufu always encouraged us to try things we weren't good at, to keep learning and growing. He told us, be skilled at diversity and be broad in diversity. This way, we can help the world in more ways. To be honest, I used to struggle with expression myself. I didn't like to talk to people, definitely not in front of crowds. My most common way of showing feelings was getting mad. But over time, with passion and support from my Tai Ji Men brothers and sisters, I changed. They gave me space to learn to make mistakes and to try again. And that's why I'm able to stand here in the forum today. Writing this speech helped me rediscover feelings I've buried. It pushed me to transform those feelings into words and to share my story. That's a huge step for me. I love playing basketball, and I also love playing the violin. These two are totally different things. One takes full moving, and the other is super focused and still. But both require the same thing, a calm mind and a clear heart. That's something I learned through our practice, and it helped me to focus, learn faster, and tell right from wrong more clearly. If each of us took a short time each day to calm our heart and reflect, we'd be able to see what we did well and what we could do better. The media has incredible power to shape society. That's why journalists need courage and a strong sense of justice to stick to fairness, truth, and integrity, and act with conscience as the criterion, because if they don't, when they spread unverified stories or biased reporting, they can seriously hurt people, just like what happened to Tai Ji Men. Once the reporters take time to reflect on themselves and act with conscience every day, they can become a true force at state. A force that protects democracy, but if they chase rating with flashy headlines and sensationalism, they make society more chaotic and unstable. Jody Ginsburg, the CEO of the Committee to Protect Journalists, once said, all our freedom rely on press freedom. Good reporting can change policies. It gives a voice to the voiceless. Journalists are like the head of the dragon, leading the society forward. With that power comes responsibility, the responsibility to seek truth and the wisdom to tell it well. Only then can we build a society that's truly full of hope. In this age of information overload, we as citizens also have to step up. We need better media literacy and sharper critical thinking, so we won't be fooled or manipulated by fake news. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, for sharing your thoughts with us. And as you said, the media literacy is important in our times because we are overwhelmed by the quantity of information. And we are targets of all sorts of information systems, including publicity and social media. And their objective is to transform us into information addicts and consumers. Consumers of things to buy, consumers of news, consumers of fast food information. But the grain and the chaff must be separated in the avalanche of information that overwhelm us. Because happiness is not in quantity, but in quality and in temperance. Thank you to so to be at the, let's say, the instigator of such reflections from your presentation. And now our last speaker will be Sally Wang, a citizen journalist. The floor is yours, Sally.
Esteemed host, distinguished guests, respected scholars, and all our online friends, hello everyone. My name is Sally Wang, a citizen journalist. It is a great honor to join you all in focusing on World Press Freedom Day. In 1993, the United Nations declared May 3rd as World Press Freedom Day, to remind governments and organizations worldwide of the importance of respecting and promoting the rights to freedom of speech and freedom of the press. While safeguarding press freedom, journalists must also report the truth with integrity, maintain neutrality, and ensure that human rights are not violated. I am a Tai Ji Men and have practiced Qigong for 30 years. Through practicing, I nurture my mind and body and learn the wisdom of life. Since practicing, I have become healthier, more confident and courageous, with my life fulfilled with positive energy. My Shifu teaches us to discern right from wrong, truth from falsehood, and good from bad. Furthermore, through daily self-reflection and making wishes, we seek to awaken the conscience in everyone. With conscience, with aspiration and real action, there will be hope then. Late September 2001, I traveled to the United States with my Shifu, Shimu, and other brothers and sisters to promote the values of love and peace. Tensions throughout the world were extremely high at the time, which was soon after the 9/11 attacks. Despite being anxious after flights resumed, upon arriving in the United States and seeing Shifu, my heart felt completely at rest. During the Mid-Autumn Festival, we held cultural performances, bringing hope to the people. When the bell of peace was rung, its resonating sound soothed the wounded and calmed people's hearts, helping them to move forward from their pain and sorrow. Our Shifu has led us across 5 continents and 114 countries, crafting a culture of love and conscience for peace and introducing more people to Tai Chi culture. Furthermore, this initiative helped to establish the United Nations International Day of Conscience and International Day of Hope, which continue to advocate for fairness, justice, and the protection of human rights while motivating people all over the world to take conscience-based action. In 1996, prosecutor Hu Quan-ren utilized the media to mislead and smear Tai Ji Men, falsely describing us as a cram school, alleging we bred goblins and evaded taxes, among other allegations. He publicly publicized the matter in the media, using dubious investigation tactics such as claiming to detect a momentary shadow in the eyes of practitioners. This breached the standard of non-disclosure during an inquiry and boldly influenced the media, resulting in a prejudgment before trial. At the time, the media was flooded with over 400 sensational and inaccurate claims, creating one-sided negative pressure and a chilling impact in public opinion. Our brothers and sisters were pointed at and looked at suspiciously, which caused significant injury to Shifu, Shimu, and all of the DZ. In the Tai Ji Men case, I witnessed serious human rights violations by government officials and the media. Although the judicial system issued a final ruling in 2007 declaring Tai Ji Men not guilty of tax evasion, fraud, or Tax Collection Act offenses, the NTB proceeded to issue tax bills illegally. In August 2020, the Ministry of Finance and the Administrative Enforcement Agency collaborated to illegally auction off Tai Ji Men's assets. That year, I spent my free time and took time off work to carry banners at the Taipei NTB. Later, I planned to leave my job early and protested every day at the Ministry of Finance and the Enforcement Agency, held banners on the Control Yuan overpass, and took part in rallies and marches on Ketagalan Boulevard, demanding that government officials revoke the illegal tax bills and hoping that the government would respond to our appeals. However, the enforcement agency insisted on illegally auctioning off Tai Ji Men's land and then illegally nationalizing it. I was really grieved and disappointed, but we continued to carry posters and banners in numerous streets to protest, convey our desire for fairness and justice, and encourage precise awareness of tax rules. Dr. Hong Dao-zi, the Zhongmen Ren of Tai Ji Men, once stated that the value of news lies in truth. While the value of media is conscience and honesty, these are fundamental qualities that media professionals should possess. The news media is a public instrument with the function of enabling the public to understand issues and express public opinions. It becomes a force that can guide public discourse and hold the government accountable. It should be independent and autonomous, free from government interference, so as to supervise the government and avoid the abuse of power. Tai Ji Men is a victim of the opponents of truth, according to Willy Fautre, chairman of the non-governmental group Human Rights Without Frontiers. The news industry is vital in this dangerous post-truth era, which serves as a platform for both spreading false information and amplifying emotional pleas. Dr. Hong Dao-zi, Tai Ji Men Shifu, has, however, constantly upheld the truth and underlined that Tai Ji Men has in fact complied with tax rules. He never made concessions and steadfastly refused to give in to any pressures that would skew the facts, even in the face of severe confinement. Prosecutor Hu Quan Ren manipulated the news media to sway public opinion during the Tai Ji Men case by spreading deceitful information and misrepresenting facts before the case was resolved. Furthermore, in order to hide their unlawful enforcement operations, Administrative Enforcement Agency officers were accused of fabricating evidence in the Keelung Chen Qing-shu case, including sending the media phony images. Press freedom must be used within the bounds set down by legislation, even though it is a fundamental right protected by the Constitution. Exceeding these legal boundaries entails bearing certain social and legal responsibilities. The quality of news media in Taiwan today is inconsistent, with some outlets degenerating into tools for manipulating public opinion. They mislead readers and the general public by spreading inaccurate information that has been twisted, demonized, exaggerated, or overstated. Media sources frequently neglect to give proportionately large corrections when false or fraudulent news is released, ignoring the harm and reputational loss of innocent parties. As a result, I've actively joined the ranks of citizen journalists, covering the news objectively and impartially. I wish to make contributions to encourage more media outlets and journalists to uphold conscience and honesty, recognize the significance of truth in news, and serve as a communication platform for many societal opinion groups. It is critical to retain neutrality, safeguard democratic values, and defend social fairness. Furthermore, I firmly encourage the government to stop infringing on Tai Ji Men's rights, to recognize its mistakes, to resolve the Tai Ji Men matter, and to return the land intended for Tai Ji Men's spiritual practice. Thank you all for listening.
And thank you, Sally, for serving the truth as a journalist. This is needed, really needed in a world where freedom of expression is corrupted by vested interests linked to politics and money. And your engagement for truth in journalism shows that the teachings of Dr. Hong Tao Tse can be implemented in all sectors of society. There are many battlefields where the enemies of truth must be combated, and yours is vital as it can protect hundreds and even thousands of people against lies, which can now become so easily viral with the social media. Your mission is to sanitize the information space, can be both a vaccine and an antidote to lies that are so widespread. Thank you again. And now I will give back the torch of freedom of expression to Massimo to introduce the very last part of this webinar.
Thank you, Willie. And we now have, through a video, Marco Respinti, who is the director in charge of Bitter Winter, and an Italian scholar and journalist, who will conclude the webinar. But last but not least, after Marco Respinti's conclusion, we will still watch a final video.
Thank you. It is now my privilege to draw some conclusions. Today, our new webinar in this important series dedicated to the Tai Ji Men case takes place after the World Press Freedom Day, which was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in December 1993. The key principle of this day of observance is the right of every individual to receive and share truthful and impartial information. Indeed, free access to information is a cornerstone of a just society. As usual, we connect the broader significance of the international days proclaimed by the UN to the specific case of Tai Ji Men, which in the Republic of China and Taiwan stands at the center of a shocking violation of freedom of religion or belief. For today's reflection, I would like to draw upon one of the most well-known fables in human history. It comes from the ancient Greek writer Aesop, who lived some 6 centuries before the Common Era, and is entitled The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Indeed, the English expression crying wolf comes from this famous fable. A young and mischievous shepherd used to spend his time fooling the villagers by repeatedly tricking them into thinking that a wolf was about to attack their flocks, only to reveal each time that it was just a joke. One day, as he tries to play the same trick again, a real wolf suddenly appears. Panicked and in a hurry, he runs to the villagers to sound the alarm, but this time, convinced he is joking one more time, they ignore him. As a result, the wolf attacks and devours all the villagers' sheep, including the playful shepherd's flock. The moral of this fable is clear and universal. If you play with fire, you will eventually get burned. There is only so much deception people are willing to tolerate. When that limit is exceeded, reality takes its revenge. The warning, of course, is not only to avoid lying, but also not to push people to the point of exasperation. The connection between Aesop's fable and the world of information and media is more than clear. As deeply convinced as I am that fables and myths hold vivid and timeless lessons about reality, I find that Aesop also teaches us that truth can be simple. Perhaps the snobbish culture of our self-styled, sophisticated world would dismiss the boy who cried wolf as too simplistic to deserve attention, a childish warning only. But the opposite is true. Truth is Simple. Aesop also delivers a hard truth to the media, one they often forget. In fact, a closer reading of his fable, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, should be a professional requirement for anyone practicing journalism or aspiring to do so. Journalists and media in general, as it reminds us, should refrain from creating and spreading false news. They should avoid alarmist language and the sensationalization of events. They do not, the consequences are inevitable. When people finally uncover the truth between layers of flashy headlines, front-page exaggeration, and bombastic reports, they will lose trust and turn away from the media altogether. Some later English versions of Aesop's fable, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, include a darker ending, reminiscent of the grim original tales of the Brothers Grimm of the cynical 1845 illustrated children's book Der Struwwelpeter by German psychiatrist and writer Heinrich Hoffmann, where stories rarely and happily and characters often meet harsh fates. In these later retellings, not only are the villagers, sheep devoured by the real wolf no one believed in, but the mischievous shepherd himself is eaten as well. From fable to reality, if the media continue deceiving the public, they too may eventually fall victim to their own hubris. Let us consider the Tai Ji Men case. The power of the media is immense. In this case, as in many others, media influence customs and behavior, shape markets, and impact politics. The right word at the right time can do great good, just as the wrong word can cause immense harm. More importantly, the harm done often outweighs any good that may later come. Due to the dynamics of the human psyche, good is quickly forgotten, while a lie or a libel tends to persist, no matter how much fact-checking and debunking is done later. This series of webinars, along with all the related materials it has generated, stands as proof of this. Over the years, scholars, human rights activists, and witnesses have gathered a vast body of documentation and analyses proving the blatant injustice that Tai Ji Men has endured since 1996, despite having been repeatedly declared innocent by every level of the Taiwanese judiciary, including the Supreme Court. This materials is a goldmine for the media, offering valuable resources to support the pursuit of justice. Yet, many media outlets prefer the easier path of repeating narratives that require less scrutiny and effort, thereby amplifying falsehoods. Of course, not all media professionals fall into this category, but the amount of misinformation published almost daily, especially on matters of religion, spirituality, and religious freedom, makes it clear that truly responsible journalism is still the exception rather than the rule. This, of course, concerns Tai Ji Men, which has been burned for years by unprofessional work carried out by unscrupulous journalists and reporters. But it also applies to many other groups around the world that have been targeted by injustice and slandered by media. Take, for example, the case of the Jehovah's Witnesses, or the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification in Japan, which has recently faced an intensification of hostile treatment. A closer examination of these cases reveals that some hostile politicians, lawyers, professionals, anti-cult activists, and sometimes rival religious groups drive the smear campaign against them. However, in every instance, the significant responsibility of the media is also clear. The media bear a significant responsibility on an educational level. People rely on them and media have the power to mislead with ease. At this point, one might be tempted to conclude that media are merely an industry of evil, conspiring against truth to undermine society. But this is not the case. The media are simply one aspect of reality in which human beings operate. If the media are flawed and provide poor service, the responsibility lies with the people behind and within them. If the media have become one of the most troubling features of contemporary society, it is because those working in the media are giving poor testimony to their own humanity. In other words, if the media are in decline, it is because people are in decline. If the media have lost their sense of truth, it is because we have lost ours. Here, Tai Ji Men, a striking victim of the injustice inflicted on society by decadent media, has something important to say. All Tai Ji Men's teachings emphasize the role of conscience. For Tai Ji Men, conscience is the first and last bastion of truth, and regaining a sense of one's conscience is, for Tai Ji Men, the key to reforming and improving society. The world will have bad media and worse information if people find it more rewarding and easier to repeat lies than to seek truth. The world will continue to suffer this dreadful situation that undermines fundamental human rights such as freedom of religion, belief, or creed, until human beings regain a deep sense of their true selves. Conscience is the key to this different future. The media will not be reformed until the human beings working within them are reformed. Human beings, not structure, of the real resource. Tai Ji Men understands this so well that it focuses its entire mission on self-cultivation and on reminding us that conscience is our inner moral compass, and we should learn to listen to it. Conscience is, of course, the remedy to the lies told by the shepherd in Aesop's fable. It is also the antidote to the wolf that devours all things and human beings, liars included. The media can become the mouthpiece of conscience if reformed human beings will take their place within them. Thank you.
And the Ministry of Finance reneged on their promise to revoke the tax bill. The National Tax Bureau illegally auctioned off the sacred land of Tai Ji Men. The land was illegally taken into state ownership. Where is the real government of just conscience? Where are justice and human rights? What is the truth about the Tai Ji Men case? Taiwan Supreme Court found Tai Ji Men not guilty of tax evasion or any other charges. The National tax bill. The National Tax Bureau illegally auctioned off the sacred land of Tai Ji Men. The land was illegally taken into state ownership. Where is the rogue government of just conscience? Where are justice and human rights? The righteous people are united with conscience to defend justice, human rights, and peace. The righteous people are united with conscience to defend justice, human rights, and peace.
In Taiwan, we at Little Winter saw at work the Taliban of the National Tax Bureau or Taliban of the Administrative Enforcement Agency, 55-year-long persecution of a peaceful spiritual movement in a democratic country such as Taiwan. The Tai Ji Men case is internationally exemplary and important, and yet we plan to continue our campaign about it. Our voice will not be silenced until the voice of justice will speak and solve the case.